for us. We have the privilege of hosting once again Ambassador Williams Wallace, who is the chairman, Africa International Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Glad you have joined us on LXTing this morning, and good to see you again, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Femi. Thank you very much, Shade. I'm in New York, so I'm at the financial center of the world, and this is where it's going to hit an impact very much. The de-dollarization agenda is real, and it's moving with speed and, what shall we say, alacrity. Now, if you remember that Kissinger, the former Secretary of State of the United States, actually weaponized the dollar by making it the petrodollar. And what that has done is, over the decades, it has ensured that the dollar stayed the prominent fiat currency around the world. So everybody was scrambling to ensure that they had dollars and kept dollars in reserves to do their transactions. And of course, the system for that is SWIFT. And SWIFT more or less is like the landlord. They decide, or rather the overlord, they decide who gets money to trade, who and what trading volumes you can do, and also, of course, at what parity you will use for your dollar and your currency. So they determined your your ability to survive in business and economy around the world, which is a stranglehold and has been a stranglehold and, of course, a weapon against other trading nations. So what BRICS has done is said, well, we are major economies now. We have got, large trading volumes among ourselves, which is Brazil, right? Russia, India, South Africa. These are very big economies. And what they have decided is that, look, we cannot be held at gunpoint by, the weaponized dollar and the petrodollar. We have got to move away from that and the SWIFT system. So technology, is the key to what has created this acceleration towards a new system, apart from the fact that, your enemy has been your enemy for a time, but your friend can be your enemy. And, the BRICS nations have said, look, we have a common purpose. The common purpose is that we are under the stranglehold of the SWIFT system and the dollar, and we need to trade among ourselves. Even among ourselves, we don't even need to trade with the dollar. And what has happened now is that most of them have had private deals. I don't know if you're aware, for example, that China accepts the naira. Are you aware of that? And they do that unilaterally. India has been doing the same. So they have now had to come up with a system to replace SWIFT so that they can trade and do settlement among themselves. And this is exactly what is happening, and technology is driving it.
All right, this move has been on for years, and the launch of this platform seems to be a breakthrough in achieving this aim of creating an alternative to SWIFT. Well, let's look at what will be the impact of these on the global financial system, and then what are some of the shortfalls you think the new platform need to focus on, rather than just making it like a competitive platform as against SWIFT.
Well, I think the impact will be good for economies. You will have, no one is saying that we won't use SWIFT. What they're saying is that we are going to have a parallel system so that if we need to trade among ourselves, we have an alternative system and do not have to go to the overlord, which is SWIFT and the dollar, which has been weaponized. let us now compete. Yes, they have to compete. Let us compete with the SWIFT system. Let us see how we can evolve like other currencies have evolved. ECHO, the euro rather, not ECHO, the euro. And they are now saying, okay, we will use our system and test it. I think Russia has been the pioneer for this. And we will be able to compete with the SWIFT system. They will still have dollar deals to do and can still use SWIFT. But what that does, the impact of that is that SWIFT now has to, as we say, man up. They have to realize that, look, they will not be the loan system that everybody is dependent on. And they will have to start making some leeways to assist economies to work with their system because there's now a rival and competition, as you know, in a capital environment is good, right? The shortfalls, I would say, is that they will have to get their teething problem over in the shortest possible time. Because if they don't, then what will happen is that the dollar will, rule supreme. And the SWIFT system say, well, we have a tried and tested system. Everyone should look at what is happening with the BRICS payment platform, right? So they've got to do their pilot and their testing, very sharply and work out the bugs. As they say with any computer programs, you work out the bugs, you try, you test it, and you ensure that it is workable. Communication systems are going to be key, very, very key, because the shortfall is if you don't have good communication systems, then you are on a hiding to nothing. So Brazil, their infrastructure, India, Russia, China, South Africa, their infrastructure systems technically and technologically has to be very, very sound. That is a shortfall. That is where I see the shortfall. SWIFT has ironed out all their bugs over years, and it is almost like bread and butter to them. You don't have to worry. Once you get into the SWIFT system, your money is transferred, almost in seconds, and you can trade, and you can receive, and you can send. So they have to be sure that their infrastructures are very much in place, that they provide confidence to the banks, right? Their own banks and their own trading companies to say, we can adopt this system. So that shortfall has to do with technology, I would say, because there's not a standard currency and there's not a standard form of trading currency contract.
All right. Now let's look at this suspicion against Russia, who is the arrowhead of this bloc. You're aware of the economic sanctions against Russia as regards the military invasion of Ukraine. Now, there's this suspicion that rather than the most talked about the intention of creating an alternative to SWIFT, that there are underlying issues which has to do with the fact that Russia is also seeking to control all the rest of the world or to expand its influence across the globe. What do you make of this suspicion, and then how will it be handled in a way that this new platform will not further create geopolitical tensions and economic barriers?
This is a very, very smart and intelligent question there, Femi. Absolutely correct. Now, what Russia has recognized, and they are right in recognizing that, is that if they're tied to the US dollar and the SWIFT system, they can be sabotaged at any point in time. And if they have expansionist agenda, they cannot do that. They will be controlled from the US, whether they like it or not. They will always be able to, they wouldn't be able to buy arms and ammunition with a US dollar. They will not, the same SWIFT system, as I talked about, can stop them from doing so many things. Plus, more importantly, their funds, which will be based in dollars, and it will be in US banks and anywhere in the world. The US can stop their funds from flowing. I mean, do you know at the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States, every dollar that you have can be tracked? Every dollar can be tracked. Multiple currencies in Europe is more difficult because it's 26 countries and they issue their own euro currency, print their own euro currency with different serial numbers. But every serial number of the United States currency is tracked. So whether you're using it for weapons purchase or for terrorism, they know where their dollar is traveling to. You can see it moving through the system. So therefore, Russia, if their heavy duty, big boy want to challenge America in the world, they had to. So it is a strategic move. It's not suspicious anymore. It is a strategic move. They have had to say, let us move away from the US currency and the US, because they know it's a strategic military move. They know that they will be controlled and their money will be controlled and their money is at risk if it's in dollars. So, strategically, they got other people to join them because they have oil, they have gas, they have the population for a market. And when they join with the other markets, they've created their own market to rival the US market and the US allies. So this is a strategic, military, strategic war that's going on of economics. So you're quite right. It's no longer suspicion, Femi. It is a fact. Because if you think about it, how will they be able to dominate themselves and China, who already have agendas for controlling a large part of the world economy? How else can they do it if they don't join forces and ensure that they have an alternative to swim? Now you've got down to the meat of the bone. This is the real issue that created the alternative system, created BRICS, and created the new platform. That is really what it is. It's a strategic economic war.
All right, let me draw your attention to the second leg of the question I asked earlier, which is for you to
Yeah,
also talk about the geopolitical tension that may arise from this. You're aware of the economic rivalry that exists between the United States and China is a strong member of the BRICS nations. Now,
absolutely.
looking at the impact of this, the existing economic rivalry, and then launching a new platform which is strategically positioned to rival that of the United States or the dominance of the dollar. How do you think the geopolitical tension that may arise from this should be managed? And then what will be the impact of this on members who are, nations who are members of these BRICS? Please talk to
Right.
us.
Well, you're quite correct there again, Femi. The political tension is going to be confrontational because you are taking away a market for the dollar. The geopolitical is you're talking about the Far East, the Middle East to some extent, and of course Russia, right? Now, those are very large markets and they are very large geopolitical zones. What that does now, it gives the United States a fear that the influence that they have had in these areas based on their economic strength of their dollar and their system, it will no longer have that impact. It will no longer have that influence. It will no longer have that domination. And now, any country that wants to sustain its survival as the leading country of the world, will have to confront. I don't want to say fight. I'll have to say confront, but it could lead to political tensions going to end up in war. So you will find that quite a lot of sabotage will take place with allies of the United States, right? Who will want to undermine the BRICS nations and the systems. So there's going to be some economic warfare taking place because the dominance of the United States and their allies. Japan is close to the United States, even though they lost a war against the United States. You have all these areas around the Middle East who are petrodollarized and who are working hand in hand with the American system, are going to feel also, by the way, threatened, very much threatened by the influence of the BRICS nations. And this now will lead to a lot of geopolitical tensions because their friends and allies will be under, domination or under influence and be forced to work in that region with the new system. And therefore, they will find that this has a pushback from their allies. So the impact on the geopolitical tension is going to rise quite a few notches up, quite a few notches up. And I can see it happening with the allies of the United States who are in the region, who are in that geopolitical region. You will see that happening. And therefore, there will be a lot of plans to undermine BRICS. Of course, they will already be putting plans together, even right now, to undermine the BRICS system, the BRICS coin or fiat or currency or digital currency, whichever they float. There will be plans to undermine and sabotage, and that is to lose confidence in that system. So there will be a crisis of confidence created for BRICS and BRICS allies. And that is what I see is coming geopolitically as they raise the tension in the regions of the near markets to the BRICS countries.
All right. Now, let's look at another strategic move by the nation, which is also to ensure they have a gold-backed kind of currency. Now, how do you consider this to be a stable alternative? And do you think this will further create a kind of buffer against the fluctuation of the dollar against the global economy, the move to have what you call a gold-backed kind of currency by the BRICS nation? How
Yeah,
will this play out?
yeah,
And what might likely be the
right. Well,
impact on global trade?
yes, the impact is that there's now a rush for gold. Of course, gold is one of the most secure metals that we can have that provide security of your currency. So what has China been doing? They've been buying up a lot of gold all around the world. India has been doing the same. Russia has gold, and everybody has been rushing to buy gold to back up and also to pair off against what the United States has in terms of gold backing, right? So at the moment, there is going to be, I would say, a scramble for more gold. The price of gold will shoot up, and whoever controls, and this is where Africa comes in, whoever controls the gold reserves and resources on the continent, and that's why there's a mad scramble between Russia and China to play a major role in Africa. They're not doing it for favors. I mean, Russia is not silly to go and back up Burkina Faso. They're backing up the gold reserves of Burkina Faso. Think about it. They're all just going where they can find the reserves and the resources they want. And we have got to be very careful about how we go about protecting our resources as well in these areas. So there's going to be a mad scramble, which is already taking place, for the gold reserves wherever they are, mostly on the African continent. And that's why you see the players of China and Russia are making major moves, including India, on the continent, because kicking out France and pushing back the US, etc., is opening up the space for the BRICS nations to take control. Now, remember, strategically, why the BRICS nations took on South Africa. I mean, think about it. It's because of the massive gold reserves that South Africa has. They were not silly. They knew what they were doing to bring South Africa in almost immediately. South Africa has a huge deposit of gold. And therefore, strategically, they started it off by ensuring they had access to gold reserves that they can use to back their currency and stability. So Africa is playing a key role there, very key role, with South Africa being one of the founding members.
Now let's look at another dimension to this conversation. Interestingly, you're in New York, and I would like us to paint the angle of what would be the impact of this on the U.S. economy. Permit me to turn you to a reporter, and I'll put it this way: since you're in New York, what are the things you're learning as regards the response of the U.S. to this development? And how would you think the US should respond to this in a way that it will not create another economic rivalry, but a matured way of strengthening that platform which is SWIFT? And would you expect another form of tension as a result of this? Talk to us.
Well, very good. Some of the meetings I've been having here are with colleagues of mine who are from capital companies, you know. I wouldn't name them. Thank you very much. Yes, as I was saying and answering your question on the impact as a reporter, luckily I was involved in some meetings with one or two capital companies here. And I can tell you that they are very nervous of the impact it's going to have on the US, the impact it's going to have on trade, the impact it's going to have on the economy, and of course, the value of the dollar in their trading ecosystem around the world. So people are very nervous in the financial sector and are, looking on with, I would say, some trepidation. I wouldn't say fear. They're looking on with trepidation as to when this is launched and how it's going to impact on their trading, geographically around the world and on their local economy in the United States. Would it mean that they shift more to their near markets of Canada, Mexico, the Caribbean, and South America, except Brazil? I fear that they are seeing a change and maybe a quantum leap in the financial system that they have never experienced before. And I think that is where the trepidation comes, because it's an unknown quantity. How are they going to trade? How are they going to compete? What damage will it do to their own economies? And what damage will it do to their international trade? So, yes, there is reason to be fearful, and there's reasons to be concerned.
All right, now let's look at the move by the BRICS nations to also expand its influence across Africa. You have South Africa to be a founding member of this bloc. Do you see more Africans or African nations joining this bloc? And what will be the impact of that on the continent? And another dimension to it is, with the launch of this new platform, do you think that will be a form of attractions for most developing nations, especially African nations who are also seeking alternative to also grow their influence? What might
Right.
likely play out?
There's two very important points you've made there, and I will tell you my analysis. One, I don't know if you're aware that Nigeria is already requesting to join the BRICS nations, right? I don't know how far the application have gone, but they are seeking to join. Now, if Nigeria joins, which is West Africa, you have South Africa, I think it will have a ripple effect, and others will want to join. And why? Because their currencies in the marketplace is, I wouldn't say useless, but it's no confidence in those currencies for trading, and they always have to refer back to the dollar, right? And that dollar is dominated by the SWIFT system, and the SWIFT system decides who gets what in the trading arena. And that is where Africa has been at a disadvantage. Now, what has happened, as I said earlier in the program, China has made the first move. China has unilaterally decided to trade the yuan with the naira. The traders who go to Guangdong and other places can spend their naira to purchase goods. This is a unilateral decision taken by China with Nigeria. It's not even a bilateral decision. It's a unilateral. So they have accepted the naira currency, and that's a very smart move. That is to bring Nigeria in quickly into the BRICS nation and say, look, we're already accepting your currency. You join us, and you will get equity and parity, that is, not priority, but parity for your currency and your trading. And once you join, you will now translate that into our digital BRICS currency. So other countries, when they see that, and you have South Africa and you have Nigeria, all of whom have major resources. Nigeria has 52 major resources under the earth, the resources that have not even been quite exploited as yet. And then the other countries, probably the DR Congo and others, and Zimbabwe, who are asking and begging, to have an alternative currency, they will quickly join. So I will see it as a ripple effect until, of course, we as Africans, which I'm working on, have our own standard united digital currency contract, like the euro did, before it became the euro. It was a contract, a trading contract. So the options now for having alternatives, Africa, yes, will take the opportunity and grab it with both hands. And that, again, is going to be a major, I would say, impact on the dollar, and the dollar's strength will be weakened because, the African countries who have major resources will now be backing another currency. I mean, that will show you how fast the loss and the de-dollarization process will plunge further. So it's a major, major political, economic war that's going to take place. And that is
All
why
right.
it is
Now,
better
talking
to
about
go for our
Nigeria
own
now,
programs.
what do you think will be the impact for Nigeria if the move to join that BRICS is successful? Then what kind of agreement do you think Nigeria should be seeking, as regards these nations that are members, and what will be the comparative advantage of that to the growth and development of the Nigerian economy? I just want you to be specific.
Well, Nigeria should just be interested in a trading contract. Nigeria wants to be able to export and therefore can take advantage. And I would say if they join, it should be probably not as permanent members, but as associate members, so they can play both the SWIFT system and the BRICS system, because it's about interests. And Nigeria's economy is based on oil, which is the petrodollar. And therefore, if they are going to join BRICS, that means they are part of the de-dollarization process. They got to make sure that they're going to get value for the crude and, of course, now gas. So they should play, they already have IOCs, 90% of whom are from the US. So they've got to be very careful. Nigeria has to be very careful in the attempt to join BRICS. They must weigh the advantages, the comparative advantage of having, I would say, having both systems to play on the world stage for better economics. So I would not advise Nigeria to just dump and join. I think they should continue with the SWIFT system because the banks are already tied into it, and then look at and become associate members of BRICS to test the waters as well, rather than join as a permanent member. Don't forget, they are founding members, but other members can join. I believe there's an associate approach that they have given other countries to join.
All right, let's wrap up this conversation by looking at this deadline set by the BRICS. The year 2050, BRICS have decided that by the year 2050, they're going to control global economy. Do you consider this to be a success or a failure? How realistic is this deadline and this goal set by the BRICS nations?
You said 2050, 2050? Sorry, I didn't hear you quite clearly.
Yeah, 2050 to control global economy.
I'm not hearing you. Your mic is muted.
Okay, my question is if you think the deadline set by the BRICS nation to control global economy by the year 2050, it's something to go by if that will be realized by the way
Achievable.
things playing out now, and you consider that to be a success or a failure?
Well, that's their measure. They're measuring their successes to control the world economy by 2050. Now, currencies rise and fall, empires rise and fall. They see themselves now as the rising empire, a conglomerate. If they have measured that 2050, they control the world economy and they're able to achieve it, then for them, it's a success. Whether it will be a success for the world economy, that is debatable, because how many people are going to benefit from it? Is it only the founding members who are pushing others to join them to create that global hegemony and be the world global leaders? I see that as being very debatable. And if everyone has to be part of it and there are benefits to all, yes, it's a success. But if it's a benefit to the few, which might be just the founding members, then I see it as a failure, which is speaking specifically, analytically, and truthfully. If they do not ensure that all their members get total benefits out of this new system, for me, it's then a failure. If it's only the founding members, that has been able to benefit from it. But if everyone has, then it's a success, because everyone will be comfortable, everyone will be on parity, and the world will probably be a better place with a new currency and a new system with fair trading. Because at the moment, how people see the dollarization as a weapon and the SWIFT system as a preference system, they see it as unfair. And if the BRICS system and BRICS platform creates fairness, then to me, that's a success. I would say, wouldn't you?
What a way to wrap up this conversation. It's always very revealing and educating having this kind of conversation with you. And it's also interesting to see how you've also deployed your military experience and economic background in providing perspective as regards this development. We just have to leave the conversation here. We must thank you for your time and your commitment, despite your busy schedule, for creating time to have this conversation with us.
Look out for wars on different levels.
Thank you so much for your time and your commitment. It's a developing story. We'll always find another time to continue this conversation with you. Thank you so much, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.